Thank you very much indeed. We're very honoured to have Minister for State Tom Hayes of the Department for Agriculture, Marine and Food with us today, and I'd like to call on the Minister maybe to say a few words, just if you want to approach the podium, Minister, while I do the introduction. The Minister has a long history as a spokesperson for Fine Gael on agriculture, going right back to 2001, and has also served as the chair of the Transport and Communications Committee. And we've just been hearing that Monaghan Mushrooms have 75 trucks a day leaving the factory with exports, so that there's a fair amount of transport involved. And I know from Shellfish Delamere they have a similar scale in terms of moving product to market. So maybe hand it over to you, Minister, now. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Can I say, Chairman, first of all, I'm delighted to be here to address you this morning. I just came from Monaghan, where I had a very interesting talk, or a very interesting session board beer involved again in relation to the whole egg and poultry industry, so it's quite interesting. We're certainly living in challenging and indeed interesting times. The agri-food and marine sector plays a very significant role in national economic development, contributing, as you know, 26 billion turnover in the national economy, generating 12.3% of merchandise exports, and with an estimated 170,000 people employed in the sector, providing 9% of national employment, quite significant in the economy. It provides a particularly strong development and employment stimulus in rural and coastal areas where employment alternatives can be limited and indeed very, very challenging to get work into rural economies. Food and beverage exports increased to a record value of 10 billion in 2013, representing an increase of 9% in the previous year, and indeed 40% in the last 4 years, with revenues of almost 3 billion higher than in 2009. Food Harvest 2020 sets out a strategy for smart green growth, mapping the future direction of the sector. Progress measured to date indicates that the value of primary output is more than 3/4 of the way to its 2020 target of 1.5 billion increase, with exports halfway through the target total of 12 billion and added value halfway to its target increase of 2.5 billion. The abolition of the milk quotas by April 2015 presents a huge opportunity to dramatically increase Ireland's production of milk, currently capped at 5 billion litres, and associated valued products. Food Harvest 2020 envisages an increase of 50% in milk output and a matching increase in dairy output value and exports. The Irish dairy herd is currently 1.2 million dairy cows. Research suggests that 300,000 extra dairy cows will be required to achieve the food harvest targets, which will require considerable investment at farm level, both in facilities and stock. Something that I think is happening. And I think one of the good things that's happening is the people that are already involved in the industry that are expanding. But I think there's a huge opportunity there for the many young professional farmers, people that hadn't an opportunity to be involved in dairy production over the last number of years, for them to get involved in a sector that they see real future in. I suppose the real problem is what faces farmers is the price of milk. And obviously the volatility of that milk prices is a problem. Some of those people entering farming, I think, and I think it's very important to say it, that they should not over-borrow or overstretch themselves. No matter how much profit you make, if you have too much repayments to make, then you will put pressure on your business, and as a result of that, we've seen too much of that in the past, particularly in the building sector, and it's happened us here in this country not so many years ago in the 80s, when people overexpanded and created huge burdens of debt around their neck that they wasn't sustainable, wasn't able to. That's, I think, one of the issues that people must deal with. However, the potential is big. I think the industry is well placed to deal with the exports that are there. The Rural Development Programme 2014 to 2020 will progress a range of priority areas for rural development, including agri-environmental measures, on-farm resource efficiency investment, and knowledge transfer mechanism to support the shift towards a low-carbon, climate-resilient economy. This programme is a key driver expansion and growth in rural areas to counterbalance the urban bias evident in locating service jobs. It will also be a key support for the achievements of the ambitious growth targets, as I said, set out in Food Harvest 2020. Our department welcomed the Agri Taxation Review published in the budget in 2015 as a joint initiative between Department of Agriculture and Department of Finance, which contained 12 new measures which were introduced as part of that budget, and the reviews form a coherent strategic framework for future agri-taxation policy. These new measures are designed to bring about the restructuring necessary to address the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead, and should lead to a far more efficient and productive sector. The capital programme of the department announced in last month's budget will continue to support the forestry sector with a new forestry programme 2014 to 2020 designed to maximise the economic value of existing and future forestry, and to promote and contribute to promote the contribution that forests can make to biodiversity, water quality, recreation and the landscape, as well as meeting Ireland's climate change need. It will provide for investment in food industry, in marketing and processing. At farm level, the emphasis will be on farm investment to continue to improve productive and sustainability. In the marine sector, investment will continue in processing and development of the seafood sector generally. What cannot be measured cannot be managed. That is the mantra behind Enterprise Ireland's suite of lean business programmes, now in their 5th year. These programmes support companies to develop tools, people skills, processes and packages lead to significant savings, making our food industry really competitive. Ireland's food and drink industry has embraced the LEAD programme with more than 160 projects funded already to date. The programme was designed across 3 levels: Lean Start, Lean Plus and Lean Transformation, with each level providing savings depending on the scale and depth of lean practices it has been possible to adopt. We've seen significant improvements in output, exports, productivity, profitability and employment in companies that have participated in this programme. The Enterprise Ireland Green Team helped companies to incorporate sustainable practices into the day-to-day running of the businesses. Better environmental performances lead to improved resources efficiency and direct cost savings, and can also increase access to customers who are increasingly demanding more environmentally friendly products and services. In addition, Enterprise Ireland's benchmark team is working with food and drink companies to capture real, current and relevant benchmark information against sector-specific and international comparators. This provides insight to a company as to why their performance is as it is, and how it can be improved through better management of people, finance, knowledge, strategy, and indeed markets. A relentless focus on improving competitiveness will assist our companies to continue to raise their performance and be as effective and as efficient, and indeed the best in the world. The recent assessment from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change demonstrates the overwhelming scientific evidence that climate change is happening, and it is extremely likely that man-made emissions of greenhouse gases are the dominant cause. We can see that our actions or inactions today in reducing emissions will substantially affect the magnitude of climate change in the coming decades. Throughout the world, people want to achieve better lives for themselves, for their children, and the actions that we can now allow us to secure long-term and sustainable growth. We produce the best beef and dairy food in the world. The grass-based production system in Ireland makes a considerable contribution to global efforts on climate change and food production. Grass-fed animals do not demand cereals that can be used for human consumption. They also convert plant material that is inedible for humans in nutritious food in which the demand is increasing. At the same time, carbon is being substituted in our soil in contrast to animal production systems which use cereals and very often reduce the carbon content of soils. At a recent European Council meeting, the Taoiseach managed to persuade our EU leaders to include a statement on agriculture and forestry in the Council's conclusion on the EU's climate change and energy framework to 2030. This means that the European Commission is committed to examining how to encourage the sustainable intensification of food production, an issue consistently championed by my colleague, Minister Simon Coveney. We must encourage increased food production to meet rising global demands in a way that is genuinely sustainable. Environmental sustainability will be an essential requirement for food production in the decades ahead. Producing more food while at the same time combating climate change is one of the most important policy challenges that we face nationally and internationally. There is an ever-growing need for increasing food security to combat global poverty, to meet the increasing and changing demands of an expanding world population and combat the impacts of climate change. Agricultural productivity will therefore need to increase to meet this very real and predictable demand. Our department continues to stress the need to combat climate change mitigation ambitions with a competitive, carbon-efficient farming system. The key underlying themes to the industry's Food Harvest 2020 strategy are smart, green growth. All sectors in the Irish agri-food industry understands the importance of sustainability in increasing production. Food Harvest 2020 identifies the opportunities for the dynamic, forward-looking agri-food industry, and our department is supporting the industry to make the most productive use of Ireland's rich and natural resources. These include ensuring that bioenergy production is encouraged and supported without encroaching on land availability for growing food crops. Bioenergy has a significant role to play in moving towards the goal of further decarbonisation of the economy post-2020. Reaching this goal will require expansion and diversification of our renewable energy portfolio. We are lucky in this regard, as we have many resources available to us, including those derived from forest, wood processing byproducts, purpose-grown energy crops, animal byproducts and waste. We must, of course, ensure that bioenergy genuinely contributes to carbon reduction, and this requires us to manage the challenges of the relationships between bioenergy and other land uses, and in particular food production. My department is currently involved in the preparation of a low-carbon sectoral roadmap and a sectoral adoption plan as set out under Climate Action and Low Carbon Development Bill 2014. The Low Carbon Roadmap will consider the analysis contained in the Teagasc Marginal Abatement Cost Curve to inform the extent of the GHG abatement that can be realistically delivered through incentivising cost-effective agricultural mitigation measures by 2020 and to the longer term, indeed, to 2050. The National Climate Change Adaptation Framework was published in 2012, following the publication of the EU White Paper on Adaptation. This governance structure allows climate change adaptation to be addressed at both national and local level, and will be the framework through which we can build resilience to the impacts of our changing climate. The roadmaps are being informed by scientific evidence and research findings. The plan will specify the policy measures to be undertaken for both mitigation and adaptation, and will be fundamental pillars of the National 2050 Low Carbon Roadmap. Given its importance on food production and economic grounds, the Irish agricultural sector must be in a position to anticipate and adapt to the negative impacts of climate change, as well as looking to maximise the benefits for the food production system. We will continue to invest in advisory service to ensure knowledge transfer and dissemination of information from research to farmers and upward to the supply chain. The use of farm discussion groups in the Carbon Navigator developed by Teagasc and Bord Bia are useful tools for farms advisors to help farms identify abatement options that can reduce carbon emissions while at the same time improve farm profitability. In addition, ongoing research into new technology is essential to maintain our economic and environmental competitive advantages. This research can provide many opportunities for our food producers and processors to become more sustainable and self-sufficient into the future. Indeed, there are many examples of businesses having converted to green technologies, which not only reduces our reliance on fossil fuels and goes towards reducing harmful emissions, but also to benefit those businesses by enhancing their competitiveness and savings on their ongoing costs. At the highest international level, the Department of Agriculture has actively participated in meetings and conferences of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change over the past number of years. Most recently, at the Bonn session in June of this year, Ireland took the opportunity to further raise the profile of agriculture both within and outside the EU, with the aim of advancing the further discussions, including to ministerial level, to the next conference of the parties in Lima in December. To summarise, we are faced with the challenges of limiting greenhouse gas emissions, and this is a high priority for Ireland and indeed our government. We must work to ensure that the ambitious targets for growth in food harvest 2020 continues to be met, while also achieving our greenhouse gas emissions target. Only through research and innovating new ways of producing food can we reduce emissions from our animal production system with increased output. Turning then maybe to my own sector in horticulture, I am happy to confirm that the sector which I have responsibility is very aware of the whole issue of environmental sustainability. They not only look at in terms of sustainability, but also as good for business and good economics. Mushroom compost manufacturers in particular have been to the forefront in investing new technologies in order to minimize the impact of their business on the environment. More and more of their production is taking place in enclosed environments where all the waste products such as soil water and gases are captured and either reused or re-scrubbed. Indeed, I'm very much aware of Monaghan's mushrooms involvement. Indeed, saw it firsthand in a place not about a mile from where I live. One of Monaghan mushroom suppliers, the most efficient production, Michael Bergen, a farm in Tipperary, was really, I saw it firsthand myself, all what he is doing within the confines of his site in Tipperary, and also the fact that he is employing 100 people in a small rural area. We talk about rural decline. This is a village, a population of 1,500 people. There's 100 people working in his mushroom business, and that's something which I think is really, really the future for our country. And I think the mushroom industry certainly is an example of one that's doing that in style. The wider horticulture sector, particularly glasshouse producers, are significant users of energy, and they also have been to the forefront in embracing new technologies and new growing systems in order to minimise energy use. Growers are harvesting in combining heat and power systems and new forms of boilers, in particular those which use wood pellets and other long-term sustainable energy sources. We have seen in the UK and the continent the location of large glasshouse complex adjacent to power plants and others generators of energy in order to use hot water from these facilities to heat the glasshouses. I would be hopeful to see that system in place, something similar to be established here in the not too distant future. So can I say I'm delighted to be here with you, somebody discussing what is, I suppose, a way forward. We have to protect our environment. To have that, we need to discuss it, particularly with the farming organisations, those people that are at the cold front. So I really delighted to be here to see so many people in the sector right across past the farm gate that are involved in this conference, from Electricity Ireland, Borbia, whoever, that you're all involved, you're sitting down here discussing it. I want to wish you well, I want to wish the conference well, I want to apologise for my colleague Simon Coven. He's away trying to sell some of the products in faraway China to make sure that money and finance keeps flowing into the country as a result of it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity of being here with you this afternoon, and wish the conference success. Thank you very much.